Auzubillahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Assalamu alaikum and a very warm welcome to World This Morning. I'm your host Hajra Satti and joining me is my wonderful co-host who happens to be Fahim Bangesh. Assalamu alaikum Fahim. How are you doing today?
Walaikum assalam and a very good morning. I'm doing very well, enthusiastic, and like I said, Hajra, that the weather seems to be quite invigorating for my soul, and that's quite ironic because I always speak very, very bad about this weather.
But then, very true, and I think Fahim is one of that person who would genuinely ask and inquire about, how the weather is, because generally when we are having the conversation, so for the starters, people usually ask, how's the weather doing, right? It's a very informal sort of a discussion. People are not actually into inquiring about the weather, but rather they want to inquire or they want to start a conversation. But if the weather is genuinely good, Fahim genuinely wants to feel it and genuinely wants to start and have that conversation about the weather because he's very passionate about having a good weather, right?
I actually am, and I have that weather app, 2 or 3 weather apps in my phone, and I keep on counter checking if there is a commonality between the apps. But sometimes we do get the accurate weather, and today, I'm loving it. If only I did not have to come to work, I would have started to sing right in the morning, because that would have given me a really, really enthusiastically something therapeutic for my mind, because that's something that I enjoy doing. And since of late, I mean, I've started to enjoy that like anything.
And okay, so our team is requesting, especially in my ears and again, that they want Fahim to sing because Fahim is an amazing singer. And with this amazing weather, I think weather calls for Fahim few lines. So why don't you go ahead?
Something that's coming to my mind, that's a classical tumri that's coming to my mind. I'm sorry,
sure,
because I can't think of a song right now in such a short notice.
Go ahead.
Okay. बरखा रुत बूंदन बरसे बरखा रुत बूंदन बरसे आई बरखा रुत आई बूंदन बरसे.
That's wonderful, and thank you so much.
We have the paucity for time.
Thank you so much for singing on our request. But now let's roll and kickstart a conversation, because today we are broaching a subject that is very dear to our heart, and it's a topic that is widely discussed, especially in the public discourses, in the academic discourses, in the literature too, and that is the role of social media and the younger population in that. And in that topic, I also want to discuss the role and dissect the concept of the podcast that is sprouting across the internet. You will find a lot of people are investing in the podcast. It's the, I think, new YouTube thing coming on. And is the podcast way to reach a younger audiences, because, or newer audiences, as I would like to say, because podcast is a medium that is getting very popular and it has a lot of audiences. And I remember when the evolution of the podcast started, so usually it focused on the songs, right? If you have a good song list, usually we refer to, as your podcast list. But is the podcast threat to a music industry, or is it a way to reach a new audiences? And then how can we incorporate or talk about the concept of mediocrity, which I always advocate, because I believe social media is a very mediocre medium. It promotes mediocrity, the conversations that we are having, the likes, or the I would say the reach that a normal video would get. You will find the content is very, very mediocre, right, as compared to good content, because people do not like to listen to or see that content. And how can we promote more intellectual conversations on social media and make our society more vibrant as compared to the polarization that is being happening because of the immense use of the social media? So without any further ado, we are very glad that we have been joined by someone who is an associate professor. He is from the Iqra University and also heading the Department of the Media Studies. He happens to be Hassan Jawad Rana. Assalamu alaikum, sir, and thank you so much for coming to our show.
It's a pleasure having you, sir. Now, Hassan Saab, we know where the youth is going, right? We know where, like Hajra very rightly said, this mediocre social media is taking us. Now, being, and I would call you a representative of the youth, because you have an interaction with the young people of Pakistan on a regular basis, on a daily basis almost. Where is the youth basically directed towards? And like Hajra was mentioning, the podcasts. Is it like a better
I'm
way?
really sorry I have to interrupt, but we have to go on a short break. After that, we will continue our conversation. Good morning.
Islamabad Capital Territory, a modern planned city that is well maintained and well organized. Islamabad is Pakistan's clean, calm, and green capital. Founded in the 1960s, it attracts people from all over Pakistan. Located on the Potohar Plateau in the northeastern part of the country, between Rawalpindi district and the Margla Hills National Park to the north. Faisal Mosque, the largest mosque in South Asia, Margla Hills National Park, Damanico, Pakistan Monument, Rawal Lake, Simli Lake, and Fatima Jinnah Park are among the tourist attractions in the territory. It is ranked as the second most beautiful capital city in the world.
Welcome back to World This Morning, and we are joined by Mr. Hassan Jawad Rana Saab, Head of Media Studies at Prague Universities. Rana Saab, as I was asking you, since you have an interaction with the young population, the youngsters of our country, the future of our country, the concept of podcasts, like Hajra very rightly mentioned, that's quite prevalent these days. Perhaps it has given the youth a platform to say what they want to say, do what they want to do. So in these circumstances, in this realm, where do you think the young population is headed towards, specifically talking about Pakistan?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the good terms, we are headed towards something better. I'll give you an example that the job market is very saturated, and there is fears of unemployment. But the one thing that the students are realizing is to be self-sufficient. I think this offers an opportunity for students and the young people especially to be self-sufficient, because not only are you earning in one way, it's about earning. So not only are you earning in foreign currencies, but you're also learning to do this, because one of the best things that you can learn is by doing. Media is a very practical media. It's a practical. You have to do it. You have to learn from your mistakes. You have to do those things to get there. For example, if you do a podcast and you learn that you need a better sound quality, that you learn to get, okay, which microphone, just Google it. What are the best microphones available for cheap and whatnot, and set it up. And now I have students who have, not just students, colleagues even, who have set up their own studios in their houses. They've colored their green screen, chromaed their home walls, and set aside time to do their podcasts. And one of the things that it's a human nature to want to say something, to want to communicate it always.
Exactly.
And this is an outlet. Now, having said this, if you don't have the proper credibility to say what you're talking about, then there's an issue. Because first, because everybody's doing it, and our culture is, I'm sorry to say, but it's a copy-paste culture. You know, one certain type of tea cafe opens up, and then thousands will open the same. And then one, for example,
that's human nature, no?
Well, not really.
But we do see that even in academia, there was this trend of the BBAs and MBAs. There was this trend of computer sciences, and there was this trend of social sciences.
We have this herd mentality, you know. If
herd mentality, yes.
Yes,
joining
this is
the bandwagon.
what this is. So since we are here and we're going to talk this platform, this is that herd mentality you should be careful of. It's just like the same person, you know. You know those street performers now. One person did a thing, he got famous, and now everybody's doing it. But you see, like Chaiwala, he became famous because of social media. Now everybody aspires to be the Chaiwala, but 1 in a million chances that somebody's going to get that same luck. But because it's a lottery, everybody here, that's the culture, everybody wants to win the lottery and not do the homework for it. We were just watching Arshad Nadeem, and we were just discussing this. The pain, the anguish, the anxiety, the sweat, everything, the psychological factors, the physical factors, the political factors.
True.
That person has to went through that over the years and then became the superstar now that he is. But same thing with podcasts. You have to find, with podcast, what's your niche? We forget that there's niches. What is a niche? Niche is a certain segment. You cannot create something for everything, for everyone. You have to have certain markets. There are certain styles people would like. What is your style? Have people studied this before they start a podcast, or they just say, let's try this. Let's just open a business. So podcast, if you treat it like a business, it's a professional thing. You'll be surprised at how successful people can be. And because I've helped launch channels, there's a rigorous process of who the target audience is, and who's going to listen to it, and how it's going to reach there. You can't just open a store and expect people to come to your store. You have to market your store. And then you have to also realize podcast is a social medium. There are algorithms that show which likely, for example, my profile is made in some in algorithm. It knows that what kind of content I want to see. The social mediums are designed in such a way where they're addictive. This is why they're addictive, is because they know you so well. They know your trends. You're talking about trends. They know the trends better than you know the trends.
But Professor Saab, so now let's also discuss, like I mentioned, and I took this from the World Bank report in which they talked about that, and I think as a professor you would also notice this trend, because I witnessed it in my class too, that younger population, they're not interested in the news media anymore. So journalism industry is facing a lot of crisis right now. People don't want to listen to news because it's very gloomy, and then we're talking about, you know, how anxiety and mental health crises are on the rise, and one of the reasons they attribute is the doom scrolling, or, you know, the negative news that they are witnessing, right? But podcasts, when it started, the evolution of it, if you analyze its beginning, you will find that a lot of people, or the new music artists, they used to go into the podcast and they had their own, you know, song list, and people used to listen to that, right? But is a podcast threat to that music industry? Because now if you see, a lot of people are reaching out to a newer audiences via podcast, and they are, analyzing content in terms of the news media. They are discussing the news. In Pakistan, news podcast is not a very prevalent thing, but if you see in the West, BBC has its own podcast, Guardian has its own podcast, DW has its own podcast, right?
Exactly.
And I think we have to do it if the journalism industry in the Pakistan wants to survive. But generally, do you feel that it's a medium to reach a younger or newer audiences, or is it a threat to the music industry?
Well, now we're talking, one side is art and one side is information. So we kind of have to look at from different angles. As far as the art community is concerned, art community has found an outlet to showcase their work, you know, and no more starving artists, and you can actually showcase your work. Even if you're an artist, why would you go through a podcast? Why would you be an interviewee in a podcast? Is because you're reaching a wider audience where you can, like mashallah, he sang for us, and everybody got to hear it. So how do you market yourself? Again, this one thing. But on the other hand, you have to realize the mentality of the youth, and right now in most places, especially Pakistan, there's the big disparity between the young people and their trust of the older people, the generation, and through propaganda, whatnot, but we have this distrust in the older way of doing things. Could be right, could be wrong, I'm not saying that, but follow me here, is that when you have you don't trust them, that means you don't want to believe what they say, but news is news. How will you get information? Because without information, it's one of the functions of media is to make people aware of what's going on.
True.
But the problem now comes in, the young people no longer want this style of news. They want the style of news that they're comfortable with. Podcast is one of those mediums where they get that style, because now you like the podcaster who is giving that news in that certain style that you want. They're very open. They're not worried about the words they choose. They're not worried. Their style is different. They're holding coffee. They're drinking. They're laughing. You know, this is the style the younger generation is attracted to.
A home-like and casual environment, yes.
To them, casual is more important because it's more real to them. To them, because of the distrust in the system, they don't want the professional setting. They are going away from it. So what's the fix? The fix is to give good information through this chosen style, and everybody, especially like you said, DW and all these, they have to do this medium, is because this is now one of the ways, and this is a trend. This will die out soon too. What will have come after podcast? I don't know. But you know, there are things that will happen, because podcasts right now it depends on how long the podcast is, what channels that you use, what the algorithm, like I said, if you understand those well, you can do a podcast.
Also, sir, considering the environment that we are living in, considering the misinformation and disinformation, it's not like the majority of the population understands the authenticity of the news or the information which is being given on the podcast, right? For example, some people living in the rural areas, they might be interested in knowing, okay, what's going on in the country, in the political scenario. But then there are people coming in and talking about all kinds of stuff. It may be a propaganda, it may be something completely wrong, it may be something paid. They don't get to know. So the majority of the population is not getting the right information. Isn't that so?
You've actually touched upon my subject area, which is propaganda and the propaganda techniques, and that are used how to basically, I would say, blind the audience, blind the people.
Exactly. Why just talk about rural population, even the urban population?
So think about it. Why is TikTok used most in Pakistan? Because there's the less checks and balances on it. Because YouTube has more checks and balances on the content. Twitter for post X can be flagged. There are mechanisms in place which dealt with the authenticity. Propaganda, because no longer are wars fought for area. It's no longer about, it's all about economy, and it's all about, it's now the war is about the mind. This is called fifth generation hybrid warfare. And if you want to change a country, you change it through media, you change it through inculcating people's minds on what you want. Propaganda and persuasion are different things. Persuasion is I'm giving you information to make up your own mind. Over here, because there is fewer checks and balances, people can say what they want. The fake news travels 5 times faster than real news. Okay, and by the time somebody clarifies that this is false, that news has spread. And because of bots, because of fake accounts, because of all these algorithms, this fake news and propaganda is spread much more faster. And people know this. This is why this is not, the youth need to realize this. I think this is a very, very important thing. That you are under propaganda at all times. Right now, I'm speaking to the youth through your channel. I'm doing propaganda. Everybody, I'm propagating something. The propaganda word is negative, but it actually means I'm putting an effort behind making you, persuade you to do something. My propaganda is that for the youth to open up their minds, that they are being influenced. Then when they know what they're being influenced about, this is called, sorry if I'm taking too much time, but ethos, pathos. There's a logical way to explain something, There's a pathos, which is emotional way to convey something, and there's credibility, the ethos.
Yeah.
So now when you look at pathos, all advertising, they scare you into buying stuff. Oh no, you're underweight or overweight. You won't get married. Oh no, your skin is dark, or your skin is like this. You won't get. Then fear puts in logic because it sells something. Remember, I want the youth always to remember that they're being sold something at all times. Right now, they're being sold good knowledge through me. I hope that's my goal. And through you, they're getting entertainment, they're getting information, they're getting up-to-date current affairs through your program. You're propagating something. Now, podcasts and people whoever can get the camera, are they qualified to be a journalist? Because a journalist has to go through rigorous training on what is free speech, what is not free speech, what can I say? I mean, over here people are scared, and there's a joke about it, that they say something wrong, that they'll be picked up or something. It's not that, it's because you should know the Constitution, and every constitution has limits on free speech. Free speech does not mean I get to say whatever I want. Free speech has limitations. Free speech has limitations on the country, on how it make you feel.
And I think certainly when we talk about the freedom of expression, it is accompanied by the responsibility, and which is the very essential aspect of having a vibrant society, a vibrant democratic society. Thank you so much, Professor Saab, for being here.
Absolute pleasure having you.
For this cross-pollination of ideas, and for making sure that we are having this debate, and with the open-mindedness and with the progressiveness that we deserve, that our younger people deserve. With that, we are going on a short break, and after we come back, we have an interesting discussion lined up. Don't go anywhere. Good morning.
Islamabad Capital Territory, a modern planned city that is well maintained and well organized. Islamabad is Pakistan's clean, calm, and green capital. Founded in the 1960s, it attracts people from all over Pakistan. Located on the Potohar Plateau in the northeastern part of the country, between Rawalpindi district and the Margla Hills National Park to the north. Faisal Mosque, the largest mosque in South Asia, Margla Hills National Park, Damanico, Pakistan Monument, Rawal Lake, Simli Lake, and Fatima Jinnah Park are
Back to World This Morning with Hajra Sati and Fahim Bangish. Well, we told you earlier we are having a very interesting discussion in the second segment of the program, because obviously we know we celebrated the 14th of August, our Independence Day, yesterday, and it was quite a day, quite a festive day, I think, for all of us. And today we're going to be talking about the responsibilities which lie with the celebrations and the festivities of the Independence Day, because independence is not just about celebrating. It comes with a huge loads of responsibilities. Independence is power, basically. And as we've heard in many superhero movies, with more power comes more responsibility. So we're going to be talking about that. And for that, in our second segment, we have a very interesting guest lined up. We have Miss Meera Malik. Ms. Meera Malik is an educationist. She is CEO Pehchan Pakistan, and she has been running schools. She is heading CEO of an NGO. Well, Ms. Meera Malik, assalamu alaikum and welcome to World This Morning.
Walaikum assalam, sabah an-noor, and a very good morning to both of you and all the viewers.
Thank you so much for being so energetic and for being on our show. It's an absolute pleasure. So let's start the conversation. When we talk about independence, like Fahim mentioned, liberty is a fundamental agency, and I think it takes a lot of effort to protect that fundamental agency, right? So how do we protect that independence, that liberty, and the responsibilities that accompany with them? How to be a good and responsible citizen?
It's a very, very loaded question, I must say that. I don't remember who said this, but it goes like, when I was younger, I wanted to change the world. Now I'm older, I just want to change myself. So to be honest with you, just being a citizen of Pakistan, whatever that is in my capacity, I should be looking into that. Whatever role Allah has given in you, whether you're a mother, teacher, sister, whatever role that you are in, I see it that way.
Okay.
My responsibility is to rectify or to inculcate the best of the values that I can for myself and for my family, and further on to my students and the society at large. This is one point that I keep on saying, just do your bit. Do your bit without expecting any reward, acknowledgement. It has to be intrinsic. When you're doing something for Pakistan, it has to be intrinsic. You're not doing it to get a lot of likes or shares and appreciation. You're doing it as part of your responsibility as a Pakistani. You're going to go and set up the right values that going to contribute towards making a healthier and happier Pakistan.
So another question that comes to mind, because I was going through a post the other day on social media, and it said perhaps in the 19th century in the British subcontinent, you had to get a permit in order for you to sit in a British officer's office, right?
Yes.
Or a gentleman's office. You had to get a permit for that. Kursi something, I've forgotten the name, right?
And I think that's a very famous maxim that Indians and dogs are not allowed, right?
Exactly,
that
exactly.
shows the environment that was prevalent
So
there.
when we talk about responsibility, and you being an educationist that you are, how can we practically instill that feeling, that patriotism in the young generation, which is the future of Pakistan, that this is the value of independence which you people take for granted?
Before I answer your question, thank you for the referring to that one, because it has been a discussion in my home, in my family, because my great-great-grandfather refused to take that ticket. And he declined it, and that is my in-laws, like my husband's great-great-grandfather.
Okay.
And we were just discussing how powerful that message was for them. But then again, there were so many who took it, and they took a lot of pride in accepting that sikka, that kursi sikka for them. It was that letter. Coming back to our roles and responsibility in inculcating, I think it's just the one key element, that is being optimistic.
Okay.
Being optimistic, being grateful, feeling blessed for whatever Allah has given us. And you know, in the ages, even yesterday, there were a lot of pessimistic messages that I was seeing, and not from the youth, unfortunately from the generation who actually had more role in damaging Pakistan than these younger ones. Even if you're at home, if you're not celebrating it with the right spirit, and if you're constantly talking about all the dark things that are going on in Pakistan, and all the injustice, you want to highlight that, how can you expect your child to feel that pride? It's
True that.
I mean, it's very simple. Even if you go through the entire Quran, you are not going to find a single instruction for a child. There isn't a single instruction that Allah gives that teach your child, you know, that is specific. Why? Because Islam or the religion is all about role modeling.
True, true.
As simple as that, and that's the reason that's not mentioned. Whatever you're going to do, whatever, and you must have noticed, even if there's a family politics going around in the house, you'll notice all the aunt, the puppy, the khai, the mommy that you don't feel good about it, automatically your child doesn't like that person.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it's as simple as that.
It's the nature of the child,
I feel
yes.
we, as being mothers, teachers, we hold such a huge responsibility on our shoulders. Unless we do not practice what we preach, our new generation is not going to, I mean, why do you think they're so skeptical about everything that we do?
And I think no one can deny the importance that a mother's lap is the first nursery
Oh,
where
yes.
you are nurtured, where you're groomed. And
Yes.
now let's talk about experiences. For example, you were mentioning that the act of the revolt against the British tyranny, that your in-laws, the great in-laws did that. And when we talk about independence, I do remember when I used to sit with my dadi, she has passed away, or with my nana, they used to very passionately talk about independence and how there was a mass exodus from the India to Pakistan, people migrated, and how they opened their doors and people gave them the refuge here, and there was no concept of any discrimination at that time, right? A lot of people conflated that idea with the Ansar and Muhajirin back in the era of Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But unfortunately, that generation has gone, or either they've passed away, or
Yes.
they're in a stage they're very, very old, right? And every generation has its own experiences, right? So our younger generation might not be able to relate to those stories, because we could relate to them because our nana, nani, dada, dadi used to talk about it, right? So how can we keep that the spirit of freedom alive in those kids, or make sure that they're also related with that history, or rooted in that sense of belonging that we call Pakistan?
You know, this is so close to my heart what you said. I used to go through all that, and I used to think, what can we do about it? So I initiated a contest by the name of Pehchan Pakistan.
Right.
And if you go on the website, you're going to see this is exactly what she is saying, that since that generation is no more with us, what can we do now to instill those values? So Pehchan Pakistan is an inclusive, one is thing that we include every kind of child in that. And then it talks about Pakistan, it talks about Pakistaniyat. And every year we pick up a theme, like this year's theme is celebrating heritage and culture of Pakistan. You'll be amazed that all the things that with the children, the students go through their education and syllabus, there's hardly any focus on this particular area. I mean, if I want to ask anyone actually, even the grown-ups probably, they would never not even can name 3 sites that are named in the heritage website for in UNESCO. And last year that we celebrated the biodiversity of Pakistan. And yesterday you must have seen when we were talking that everybody was going out and planting a tree without even realizing which kind of tree that you should be planting in that specific area. So what I have done, this is the kind of platform that I've created. What I see so much of potential in today's parents and today's youth to create such platforms. Like, let's start talking about Pakistan. Let's start celebrating. There are so many aspects of Pakistan that can be celebrated, and it doesn't have to be a contest. It can be a talk. It can be just a chit chat. Just start involving. One of the things that I feel the parents have stopped doing is talking to their children.
That's true.
Don't
true.
you feel it's such a transitional dialogue? Have you eaten? Have you? I mean, are you prepared for tomorrow? Is your bag ready? Is your clothes there? And that's all we talk about.
And then they complain that बच्चे हमारी बात नहीं सुनते.
हमारे नहीं सुनते क्योंकि because you know we don't have time for children
I
anymore.
mean, I remember yesterday I was talking to my son and I told him, okay, you're celebrating, you're wearing green. Why are you wearing green? Why are you celebrating? And he said, I don't know, Baba.
Yes.
And then I made sure that I tell him why. I told him what freedom is all about. I told
so
him
beautiful.
that the Kursi, a permit, I told him about that. that we weren't allowed. Now you are. You can go and
Yes.
sit anywhere you want to.
Absolutely.
That's just an example.
That's
And I
such a
thought-
beautiful thing to do.
Oh, and I think all the parents should, because instead of focusing more on going out in the cars and honking, I think we should be teaching our children, fine, do that too if you want to, but at
Yes.
least tell them why we're doing it.
Yes.
Yeah?
I mean, such a beautiful conversation to have with your child. Why are we wearing green? What does this white thing signifies in a flag?
Exactly.
I mean, basic things that even in the environment, we have the most beautiful country in the world.
That's true.
I mean, you name it. What kind of a geographical location that we do not have? What is it that is missing? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. So, I mean, but what we are missing out is
Only I
that
think it's the
appreciation.
responsibility
Yes.
that's
Yes.
missing.
Yes.
Yes.
But again, responsibility starts with us. Our children are not seeing us being as good and responsible citizens as we should have been, showing
True.
them actually.
Right,
So
right.
that's the best thing we can do. We can just act in a responsible way and stand at the right side of the history.
Right,
And this is very important
And
too.
Ms. Mia, quickly, because of the paucity
Yes.
of the time, let's explore the concept of independence, the freedom, the liberty at the intersection of education. How do they complement each other? And as an educationist, how are you making sure that you're filling the gap?
What a beautiful thing that you have reminded me. Quaid-e-Azam, he went to Balochistan, and he was, traditionally he was awarded or presented a sword.
Right, right.
And you know what he said? That this is what we are going to use in defense. The first weapon, the first thing, that is the education.
The pen,
And
yeah.
the second one is economic development and empowerment. Unless and until we do not educate, and by education, again, I just do not mean just going through the curriculum and passing grades.
True, true, true.
There has to be a skill now. It has to be a skill-based education. We need to look into that. We have to be inclusive. We are lacking behind that. But again, let me tell you, the situation is not that pessimistic. There are so many unsung heroes who are working towards improving education, and you will be amazed. But we never heard about this. We just think because we are sitting in the capital, we think that entire Pakistan is like this. No. There are thousands of people running institutions on their own, under an NGO, and they are doing such a wonderful, they're providing such beautiful platforms in their villages,
Right,
actually.
right.
And I must, there's a, let me quote an example. There is a Kahuta, there's a place in Kahuta,
yes.
and
Right.
thoda sa usse aage jo hai na, there's a Azim public school.
All
Okay?
right.
I've
Azim,
heard it, yeah, yeah.
you have heard,
I
yeah.
think I've heard
So
it.
it's run by a retired army person. What he did, he picked up every year. He picks up 100 boys and girls from his village, and he educates them. And he has been doing this from the last, I don't know, 16, 17 years.
20 years, I guess.
20 years.
yes,
And
yes.
now he has more than 100 or 150 professionals in army, and who are in doctors, who are engineers. Just imagine the vision he had. And let me tell you, I mean, even the fee is within 1,000. That's the beauty of it. And the people who cannot afford it, it's all right. It's absolutely free of cost. So such are the people that must be celebrated and encouraged.
Yes,
I mean,
absolutely.
let's highlight these stories instead of all the negativity. And
Well-
one of the things that I really appreciate at my house, I've taken off the TV. You know, there are less fights.
Right.
There's less breaking news.
I'm pretty
And
sure.
you know, it's the environment, it's so much negativity. And I do believe in the way, what the kind of energy you omit at home. If you enter a home, jahan pe the whole day there's a TV and the breaking news is there and everything that is going on is pessimistic, it is impacting your child, by the way.
That's very true.
Whether
and
you accept that or not, it
that's
is
very-
impacting it.
That's very
Right.
true. And thank you so much for coming here,
Thank
Ms. Priya.
you.
Thank you for wonderful message that you gave. And hope you are somehow able to detox yourself from the mobile too, right? Because it
Oh,
is the
yes.
new mobile,
Oh,
new
yes.
TV, right? And with that, we are going, we are bidding you farewell. Until next time, it's a goodbye. Allah Hafiz. And good morning.
And